योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। हरिः ओम्। So in the previous session, we saw the very clearly explained relation between samapatti and samadhi. And then we covered sutra number 47 also and completed that, which was nirvichara vaisharadhyadhyatma prasadaha iti. So we understood what is the nature of the chitta and its purity in the state of nirvichara samapatti, and how that leads to adhyatma prasada. And we explained what is adhyatma prasada in quite some detail. So now today we start with the next sutra, 1.48. Okay.
So the sutra mentioned about Adhyatma Prasada. Prasada, as I told you last time, it is grace and bliss. And so many things, because grace and bliss itself is a cluster of qualities such as sublimity, purity, piety, sanctity, virginity of the consciousness. Now, Adhyatma Prasada. What is Adhyatma Prasada? Again, this word Adhyatma cannot be rendered into English justifiably, because that would be rendered as spiritual bliss and spiritual grace. Now there is a lot of ambiguity in word spiritual, because most of you might think you know the word, but if I tell you, explain what is spirituality, what is spiritual, you will find a lot of difficulty there, lack of clarity there. You can't really spell it out. The word Adhyatma Prasad should be maintained as Adhyatma and should not be rendered into English. What is Adhyatma? It is, as I said last time, it is three-dimensional word, three-dimensional concept. It is not unidimensional. Just to refresh your memory, last time, as I said, he is a man, unidimensional. He is husband, bidimensional. Because when we say he is a husband, that means he has a wife. He is a father, three-dimensional. That means he has a wife and he has a child. Similarly, Adhyatma is three-dimensional. What are the other two dimensions? You can't say, I just believe in Adhyatma, but I don't believe in other two. So, in the ancient thought process, the sages and seers propounded concept of Adibhautika, Adidaivika and Adhyatmika. So if you want to conceive the concept of Adhyatma, you can't overlook Adibhautika. Adibhautik Adidaivik. So that's why it is three-dimensional concept. So the ancient thought looks at everything around you and yourself in these three dimensions. Even the things around you and you yourself, the living and non-living things, sentient, insentient things around you, in the whole universe and you, there are three dimensions to it. Adibhautika, Adidaivika, Adhyatmaka. What's the difference between Bhautik and Adibhautik? There is also a term called Bhautik and Adibhautik, Daivi and Adidaivi, Atma and Adhyatma. Adi is a prefix which comes here. So little idea about ourselves in three aspects: Adibhautik, Adidaivik, Adhyatmika. So the postulation of the ancient thought is all manifestations are Adibhautika. The constitution, their constituents are Adidaivika. And Adhisthana, or the substrate of everything, is something which is so-called spiritual, that is Adhyatma. So there are three aspects, even inert things like this mat, this mic, this book. Adibhautika, Adidaivika and Adhyatmika. There is an eternal entity, metaphysical entity, in every single particle. In every single particle there is a metaphysical entity. So that is why, that is this spirituality, spiritual philosophy. Spiritual philosophy is not just believing in God, going to temples. So Adhyatma is not just believing in God or visiting shrines, visiting temples, reading scriptures. That's why there is no word for that in English. So Adhyatmik Adhishthan, Adidaivik Sangatana, Adibhautik Avishkar, manifestation. So this is the view of ancient wisdom. So any object, there will be three dimensions and they will explore the three dimensions, they will understand the three dimensions. Adibhautika, Adidaivika, Adhyatmika. So within ourselves, let's see the difference between Bhautik and Adibhautik, elemental and Adi-elemental. Adi, so he will perhaps explain you what is the prefix there. That's the last time I said he should explain the Adi aspect, Adi Atma. So, our embodiment contains Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, Akash. These five elements are in our embodiment. Five elements are in our embodiment. Now when it comes to Prithvi, what do we think of Prithvi? Element of earth, stone, pebbles, dust, sand. Is that right? By element of earth, we mean that which is faulty. It is earth. Not to confuse between earth and element of earth. Not to confuse between water and element of water. Not to confuse between fire and element of fire. Not to confuse between air and element of air. And similarly, space and element of space. Again, the element word in English, I don't know whether it is adequate here. Now in our embodiment we have Prithvi. Do you mean to say that somewhere there is some dust, some sand, some pebbles, some stones, some boulders? What you see on the earth as a matter, will you be able to identify such earth matter in our embodiment? It doesn't come in the form of somewhere little dust, somewhere little mud, somewhere some pebbles, somewhere some stones, somewhere some boulders. So you will not get the matter of earth in our body. The matter of earth differently is in our body. That is element of earth in our body. That means we don't have matter earth, but skin, flesh, muscles, bones, these are all outcomes, or these are all manifestation of element of earth. Similarly, fire. What's the sign of living and non-living body, living and dead body? One of the things is living body has a warmth, it has a temperature. Dead body doesn't have a temperature. That means there is element of fire, but it doesn't mean there is somewhere a flame in our body. There is no flame in our body, there is no matter of fire in our body. But the fire is manifesting in certain way in our embodiment. So there is Agni Tattva, Vayu Tattva similarly. There are no gases in our body, but there is manifestation of gas material which will be suitable to our embodiment. If you have gases in your body, it's a diseased condition. If you have gases in your body, it's a diseased condition. So the Vayu manifests in particular way which will be suitable to be in a biological entity such as human being or any other being. It's not that we go and get filled up some air in our bodies because it contains air matter. It doesn't go air matter, it contains air element. The other day on Friday class, I was explaining you the word there is windpipe. It is not a proper nomenclature to that organ called windpipe. By the time the breath goes in, it doesn't remain wind. Our body is 70-75% of water. Anything touching our water immediately is dampified, humidified, and again see the breath, it goes, touches the mouth parts. Even if you take breath in the nostrils, it opens into the mouth, and then you get the so-called windpipe. So the dampness is there. So where the air doesn't go as air once it enters the nostrils. So that's a different inquiry that you must have. Then the body has so many other elements in the body. You all know that there should be iron in our body. There is a limited kind of iron which should be in the body. Doesn't mean that there is iron metal somewhere in the body. Iron manifests in particular form in our body. That's why in your blood test, or in your biochemical test, you will be told about iron deficiency. How much is the iron? How much should be the iron? That doesn't mean that we contain an iron piece, a metal piece. Iron manifests in some other way which is in the blood, which you find in the blood. Then it is said that we have so much of iron in our body that it can turn out a nail of 1 inch length. So much of iron is there in our body. You know the nail, 1 inch nail. There is material for 1 inch nail in our body, but nowhere you find metal iron. So what is the iron in blood? It's not metal form. Okay? So many things are in our body. So it's a manifestation of the elements in our body, which is different than manifestation of elements outside the body. How is the iron outside the body? You know it's a metal. And then you can do something from the iron. So iron outside is a matter. Iron inside is a unique manifestation of iron. So that is Adi Bhautik. How the matter is constituted or is manifested within our embodiment, that's why it is called Adi Bhautika. So we should know that. How the elements are within our body. Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, Akash. In what way they are manifesting within us, within our embodiment. As I said, there is no flame somewhere burning. However, our food is digested by gastric fire. Gastric fire is not a burner. In what way is the gastric fire? Does it have the temperature of the flame? You know, what's the temperature of any flame? What is the range of the temperature of any flame? Yellow flame and blue flame, you know, yellow is not so hot, blue is very, very hot, blue flame. So do you have any yellow flame or blue flame within the body? In what way the fire is there? So this inquiry is there in understanding the Adhibhautik constitution of our body. How is Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, Akash within our body? Then there is Adhidaivik. Daivi and Adhidaivi. Daivi are celestial forces. So very word term celestial forces suggests they are not here. They are in celestial worlds. Is that right? Terrestrial, celestial. Terrestrial, extraterrestrial. So celestial or extraterrestrial, that means they are not here. They are not here. But how are those forces within us? No anatomy will tell you about this. But the reality is that the Adhidaivik, the celestial forces, the way they are within us is called Adhidaivi. The divinity within us is not God who is out in the universe. The divinity in our embodiment called Antaryami, that is called as Adhiyagnya. The omnipotent, omniscient, if that divinity is within you, we should be all omnipotent, omniscient. Why limited, potent and limited scient? So the God manifests in different way within us. That is called Adhiyagnya concept, which comes in Bhagavad Gita. That Almighty is not within us in the form as Almighty. If the omniscient is within us, why are we mortal human beings? That means either it doesn't have influence on us. If that is the case, then it is not omnipotent. The omniscient resides within us, but we are not omniscient. We are microscient, if I may say so. If omniscient resides, but we are microscient, then that means omniscient is not omnipotent. Had it been potent, we would have been omniscient. So there is a way in which He manifests within us. Similarly, the divinity, the Atma, the immutable, metaphysical, eternal, birthless, deathless, immutable entity resides within us, that Atma. How does it reside? That is called Adi Atma. So I will just give you one instance of, say, one organ. Every organ has three-dimensional existence within us. So there is a passage in Taittiriya Aranyak, Subala Upanishad. If you look into my even book, where I have mentioned Adhidaivik aspects in the senses. The 10 senses, 10 organs and the 3 internal organs, 4 internal organs, 14 organs, 5 plus 5 plus 4. Even in the small book, Indriya Avaya Vignan, I have quoted there, mentioned there, the Lagunyasa, which comes in Taittiriya Upanishad, Aranyaka. Agni Vag Bhutva Mukham Pravishat. So it mentions the three. Our eyes, these eyes, organ is Adibhautik. What is Adidaivik? Aditya. The deity called Aditya, Surya, sun, not the sun which is at 93 billion miles. Do you follow? Not the sun which you are seeing in the heavens. There is a Devata, there is a deity called Aditya Devata. Aditya Devata gives celestial powers to our eyes. Our eyes are marvel. Any organ of the body and our embodiment is a marvel. We are mortals, but their functions are really beyond mortality. They are not mortals. The amount of work they do. Your heart is working. Is it not a marvel? Incessantly. 24/7 into whatever lifespan, incessantly working. Which motor works, man-made machine works like that? Liver is working, stomach is working, organs are working. 24/7 they are working. Do they go on leave? Incessantly they work. It's really a marvel to understand our embodiment, because there are celestial forces presiding over those organs. That's why you have the word Indriyas. I won't deliberate on it. You can look into the book. We don't call them organs. We call them Indriyas. Indra, the king of all gods. So eyes, Adibhautik. Dole, Chakshu, Adibhautik. What is Adidaivik? Aditya, the celestial force behind the eyes. What is Adhyatma? Drushti, seeing. See, you can go and improve your eyes. If you have something gone with the eyes, you can go to ophthalmologist and you can get your eyes remedied. But the drushti, the vision, seeing figuratively, English, not literally. No ophthalmologist can do anything. No ophthalmologist can improve your vision in figurative sense. He can improve your vision literally, not figuratively. The passion, the craze, the delirium, the tendencies behind the senses. Who can improve? Ophthalmologist, can ophthalmologist improve? Not at all. That is Adhyatma. How you see, your drushti, your vision is Adhyatma. Shravana is Adhyatma. Shrotrendriya is Adibhautik. Shrotra is Adibhautik. Digdevata is Adidaivik. So there are deities behind all these organs. There is Adidaivik constitution. So Adibhautik manifestation, Adidaivik constitution, and Adhyatmic substrate, Adhishthana. Adhishthana is substrate is with reference to Adhyatma. So we need to know our anatomy physiology from that perspective in philosophy, in yoga. There is no point in looking into grey anatomy for yoga. That's okay for yoga. You should know anatomy physiology for yoga. You should know sternum, shoulder, deltoid, trapezium, bicep, liver, stomach, colon, bladder, heart, lung, spine. Yes, for yoga, not for yoga. So students of yoga need to understand the importance of the Adibhautik, Adidaivik, Adhyatmic aspects. So if you want to know much about it, my book is there, Yogasanas and Adhyatmic Academy. I have also given a talk in Bangalore on Adhyatma. There's CD available. So I have delineated more on that, Adibhautik, Adidaivik, Adhyatmik. Even the things outside, the sun in the sky, the astrophysicists have a bhautik view of the sun. That's called bhautik. They look at it as a matter. But someone like Vishwamitra, from looking at the sun by sighting the sun through the sun, unlike astronomers and astrophysicists, what they saw in sun, physical sun, the light and energies and whatever, the various rays coming from the sun, apart from that, he intuitively got Gayatri mantra. Gayatri mantra is Savitri mantra, Gayatri Chanda, Savitri is sun, Savita Devata, it's a deity. That's why we have a concept called Surya Narayan. It's a glorious thing. The sun, if you understand the glory, apart from the physical aspects, that it is 6,500 Kelvin, it has some millions of degrees of temperature in the belly, the corona has some hundreds of thousands of Celsius of temperature. Apart from physical facts, there are certain realities. So sometimes I told you difference between facts and realities. So there are realities about the sun, and Vishwamitra explored that, and that's why he constructed, or intuitively he got it, Gayatri mantra. And the Gayatri has different powers. So look into the Gayatri Rahasya, you will get to know about Gayatri powers. What are the powers of Gayatri mantra? So, Adidaivik and Adhyatmik, Surya Narayana. That's why we call Surya Narayan, Aditya Devata. Surya as a physical entity in the sky, Aditya Devata, and Surya Narayana, Adhyatmik. Similarly, moon. The moon in the sky is manifesting within us as Chandra Devata, Soma Devata, Mano Devata. Presiding deity of our mind is Chandra. It is not the physical sun in the sky, which is 235,000 miles away. But that moon has a celestial constitution, and that celestial constitution is governing our mind. That is why we don't have sanities on full moon and new moon. We are not sane on full moon and new moon. That's why the word lunatic, from lunar, the word lunatic. So there are other powers of the moon which we don't identify. Because of the moon we have all this vanaspati. All this botanical life is not because of the sun so much, but because of the moon. Sun will just give botanical life here. It will be cause for botanical life, but for varieties of botanical life, that's why we have concept Aushadhi Vanaspatayaha. These are not just plants. It is because of the moon you get seasons, and because of the seasons you get different plants. Sun will only trigger botanical life, but the botanical world is because of the moon. So know the difference between botanical life and botanical moon. A botanical world. Botanical world is bounty of moon. So it has a chemical property which is so invaluable, which we will not, astronomers, astrophysicists will not identify chemical properties of the moon. There are enormous chemical properties of the moon which work on our chemistries, which also works on chemistry on the planet. That's why you get high tides on new moon and full moon. Otherwise, the full moon is all the time in the sky. The full moon, the round of the moon, every time is in the sky, but you don't get high tide and low tide on all the days. The moon is not as it appears to you on the second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, 8th day, 10th day, 11th day, 12th day. The moon is not like that in the sky. It's whole complete disk in the sky. Is that right? But when it is complete disk, you don't get high tide. But why only on new moon and full moon? So there are such powers of the moon as well to influence the chemical aspects in us, chemical aspects on the planet. And all the botanical world, you know, it's complex chemistries that are turning out so many chemicals. Each plant, each fruit turns out different chemicals, different chemical properties. It is because of the moon, potentials in the moon in its chemical radiations. We only see the moonlight. We don't see the chemical radiation from the moon. That's why chemically we are disturbed according to the moon. Anyway, so the whole universe, we have wonderful concept of Adibhautik, Adidaivik, Adhyatmik. Adibhautik Avishkar, Adidaivik Sangatana, Adhyatmik Adhishthan. Adibhautik Avishkar. Adibhautik Avishkar, Adidaivik Sangatana, Adhyatmik Adhishthan, substrate. So those who are interested, the vernacular people, there is a very good book in library which mentions about this, understands the world, makes you understand the world in the 3 dimensions, rather than anatomy giving you only 1 dimension of our embodiment. Now, Adhyatma Prasadaha. By Nirvichara Samapatti, where you have subtle envisionments, last time I told you, the gross doesn't give us reality. Subtle will only give reality. If you want to know truth, you have to have pursuit of the subtle. You can't pursue the gross in pursuit of the truth. It will always mislead. It will not only, it will give you perversion. The untruth will be perceived as truth if you go after gross. Not only it will mislead, it will subvertly lead you. You will see opposite. Making a mistake is not wrong, but perversion? What's perversion? So gross, going after the gross will you make perverted. Going after subtle will give you wisdom, essential wisdom, truth. Now, when the truth is revealed by Nirvichara Samapatti, there is Adhyatma Prasada. Because what are the supports of Nirvichara? If you recall, subtle aspects of our embodiment, Tanmatra, Mahat, Ahankar, Buddhi Tattva, Pradhan Tattva, Purusha Tattva. So these are the support of Nirvichara Samapatti. Savichara Nirvichara Samapatti. Naturally it's going to give you some Adhyatmic Prasada, the bliss. And he told you last time, when it's Adhyatma Prasada, it's like Shailastha Vritti, you are on the top of the mountain, he quoted Vyasa. Vyasa describing that. So from top of the tower, your mind is evened out. You don't have biases, you don't have dualities, you don't have likes and dislikes, because everything is Lilliput. Every human being walking on the streets will be appearing this much. You can't identify who is who and what is what. And that's why you have even vision when you are on tower top. That's why get on top tower, when I said last time, if you are mean in your mind, get to the tower of your building. And from there look down. Or go to the ocean, look at the ocean which expands up to horizon. Mind will become magnanimous. Shailastha Vritti. That's called Shailastha Vritti. So that's Adhyatma Prasada. It is grace and bliss. Now what is that Adhyatma Prasada will be explained in the next sutra. Let's try to know what is Adhyatma Prasada. Thank you for your patience.
He asked me to explain the Adi prefix. So, I mean, basically there's something called the Saptami Vibhakti in Sanskrit, which is a form. In English, I think it's called locative. So that is to say, when you say something is on something or in something, right? That is Saptami. Okay. Adi, the prefix, is about that being in there or on there. So therefore, as I said last time, Adhyatma can be sort of understood as Atmani Vartate iti Adhyatma. Okay? So what resides within, in the Antakaranam, Buddhau, Chitte, whatever resides there is Adhyatmam. Okay? So the understanding of Adhyatma Prasadaha, I am sort of repeating what was explained last time, but that will help us continue to the next sutra. Vyasa very nicely explained. He said, Ashuddhyavarana malapetasya prakashatmanaha buddhisattvasya. So let's understand this once more quickly. So buddhisattva is the material, the buddhi, the fabric of buddhi, which is prakashatma. So essentially it is of luminosity, is completely sattvic. Okay? So prakasha, kriya, sthiti are three terms that refer to sattva, rajatama. So here when we say prakashatmanaha buddhisattvasya, the material of the buddhi is essentially made of prakasha or sattva guna. But how is it normally? Ashuddhya varana malapetasya, it says. So the buddhi is normally covered, obscured, veiled by ashuddhi, impurities of the rajatama nature. So now this kind of buddhi, which is essentially sattvic and prakashatma, but covered by impurities, rajastamobhyam anabhibhutaha swachchaha sthiti pravahaha vaisharadyam. So when it is rajastamobhyam anabhibhutaha, means it is no longer overcome, no longer covered by rajas and tamas. In that state, when it is swachchaha, completely clean and pure, sthiti pravahaha, that state continues over time, there is a steady flow, that is called vaisharadyam. That is a specific purity being referred here. Then in this state of vaisharadyam, when it arises, yada jayate tada yoginaha bhavati adhyatma prasadaha. In that state, the yogi gets adhyatma prasada. And prasada we already explained, that was sort of a combination of bliss and grace, because the antakarana, the inner instrument made up of buddhi, chitta, ahankar, manas, all of them, the conglomerate, that is in its pure essential form. So that is what happens in that state. And then further we talked about what is the state of understanding or knowledge in that state is bhutartha vishayaha krama ananurodhi sputaha prajnalokaha. So what is the kind of alokaha? What is the darshanam or the vision in that state is bhutartha vishayaha, the essential understanding of the subtle entities, like he said. Krama ananurodhi, there is no sequence. Okay, the complete, it's called yugapat jnanam. So all of that in space and time is completely understood all together. There is no sequence. I gave that analogy of the children playing hide and seek, and each is seeing the other, sort of a hand coming out of the bush, a face popping out of another bush, and so on. But if you are sitting on the balcony on the 10th floor, you can see all the children there hiding behind the bushes. So you are directly seeing the complete understanding of the state in space, if not in time, all together. So that is the aloka that you get, because you are seeing from a certain plane. Whereas the children who are there, they can't see each other, and they are only sort of inferring by the little glimpses that they get. So here, there is no sequence. You are seeing past, present, future, as well as the complete reality in space of the subtle element. Again, the example of the Rupa Tanmatra, which can give different colors and so on. But the complete ability to give form, whatever is the form, that understanding of the Rupa Tanmatra comes in this state. Okay? So this is the state of the Antakaranam. And now let's look at the next sutra, 1.48. That says, Ritambhara Tatra Prajna. Okay? So the Prajna, which is the state of the sort of the intellect, the wisdom, the understanding, in that condition, which is Tatra, is Ritambhara. Okay? So Ritambhara, now we'll see what Ritam means, what Ritambhara means.
So that is the prasada. Ritambhara Prajna is the Adhyatma prasada. What is the bliss and grace? Ritambhara Prajna. What is it? Let's see.
So Ritambhara is the term, the name given by Patanjali. So let's quickly see what Vyasa has to say about it and then explain that. So Vyasa says, Tasmin samahita chittasya ya prajna jayate tasya ritambhareti sanya bhavati. Okay. So in that state, when the chitta is samahita, means the yogi has attained samadhi, the chitta is therefore samahita. In that state, the prajna that arises, the name given to it is Ritambhara. Ritambhara iti sanya bhavati. That is the name, that is the term given. As we have seen in previous conditions, certain things are just names and not to be translated and so on. In fact, sometimes the meaning may not even correlate. It is just like I said last time, in maths you could say x equal to something. The x has no essential meaning. But in this case, that is not the case. And Vyasa specifically says that. Vyasa says, Anvartha cha sa satyameva bibharti. So it says the way the name is given, indeed it follows the nature of it, because satyameva bibharti. So now let's understand what is Ritambhara. Ritam bibharti iti Ritambhara. Okay, one that possesses, one that carries. Ritam, that is Ritambhara. Now, what is Ritam? Now, so this has sort of shades and layers of meaning. So let's sort of go slowly there. So Amar Kosha says, Rita, Satya, Tathya, Samyak. These are equivalent terms. So Rita is in some sense essential reality, non-relative essential reality. Satya is also reality. Now Rita has this other angle of, see, what is Tathya? Tata sadhu, so something that is right and something that is true. That combination is Rita. And if you look at the sort of the academic understanding of this term by the modern modern academics who are trying to study the ancient texts, they identify Rita as a very ancient term. Okay? One of the early terms in the Vedas. And then they say that originally it meant uniformity in nature and the ordered course of things, like these consistent alternation of day and night and so on. So that conception that there is an order to nature, there is an order to creation, originally it meant that, while in mantras it not only bears that significance but an additional one of moral order. Right? So the academics, when they study the text, they see a sequence by the study of language. The parampara, the tradition, does not see that, because by the tradition this is Shruti, everything has been revealed together with creation. But it is also interesting to understand the other side of study. So they recognize Rita as a very old term compared to, for example, dharma, in the way they go. And then they say it started with a recognition of the order of the creation, and then it also got into the state of moral order. But that is sort of partial academic understanding there. Then there is in the Taittiriya Upanishad, you see Shanno Mitra Shanvaranaha and so on, which is the invocation. And there it says, the student in some sense says Satyam Vadishyami, Ritam Vadishyami. So the Satya and the Rita, the words are used together. Right? And that is also intriguing, because both in some sense mean reality. So in that context, there are multiple explanations of how Rita and Satya relate to each other. So in Shankara's commentary to that particular verse there, to that particular mantra, he says, Ritam yatha shastram yatha kartavyam buddho suparinishtitaha arthaha. Okay, so that which complies with the Shastra, okay, so that gives the reality and correctness, the essential reality angle. Yatha kartavyam. Kartavyam means in some sense duty. So that brings in the dharma angle. Okay, so the moral order and the essential reality together. Yatha shastram, yatha kartavyam, buddhau suparinishtitaha arthaha. So that also gives the sort of where it resides. It resides in the buddhi. Okay, so that which resides in the buddhi and complies with the shastra and complies with the dharma and has been established in the buddhi, that is rata. Satyamiti sa eva vakkayabhyam sampadyamanaha. So that once what is established in the buddhi, which is true and which is right, when it manifests in speech and action, that is satya. So that is how the satya and rata has been explained in the context of that Upanishad there. Then similar thing you see that vachika satyam satyameva manasika satyam rutam. Okay, so the true and reality coming in speech, that is satyam. Manasika satyam, the thing that resides in the mind. So as it said, the great men, they speak what they think, is said, right? So there is no falsehood, there is no layer of falsehood coming anywhere. So the manasika satyam is ritam, the thing that is right in the mind, right in the buddhi. Another interesting quote is about the two, the satya and the ruta. It says, Satya ruta swarupe vagmanaha satve cha jnana bhavana tatve jyoti rasatmake agnishomatmake cha bhavataha. So there are two pairs and analogous pairs that have been taken. The Satya and Ruta in their form, Satya Ruta Swarupe, Vagmanaha, speech and mind. So you see the correlation again, Satya with the speech, Ruta with the mind. Satvecha, Satve, it refers to the two essential entities. Sattva is things, the entities that exist. It is usually in the context of the Arsha speech, where the rishis are talking about the essential realities. Those essential entities are usually referred to as sattva. So satya ruta vagmanaha jnana bhavana tatve. So jnana and bhavana, the two entities. Jyoti rasatmake, so the light and the essence. Jyoti rasatmake. Agni shomatmake, which also in the explanation that he gave, Agni is associated with speech. Soma, the moon, is associated with the mind. So the Agni Shomatmake cha bhavataha. So that is where we sort of get a background of Satya and Ruta. Now this prajna, which is revealing the essential reality in its entirety, that Patanjali has named Ritambhara Prajna, which has given the Adhyatma Prasadaha. Okay. Then, I'll just finish this here. Vyasa says, Nacha tatra viparyasa jnana gandhopi asti. So in that state, there is no viparyaya. Okay, there is no mithya jnanam, because ritam is shining forth, right, in the mind. So what is in the chitta is the complete reality that is completely shining. So that is the Ritambara Prajna. There is not even the smell of viparyaya there. Viparyasa jnana gandhopi asti na. Okay, so that doesn't exist. And therefore he says, Vyasa quotes, Tatha chuktam agamane nanumanena dhyanabhyasa rasena cha tridha prakalpayan prajnam labate yogamuttamam. See, now what is happening is, we have gotten a very beautiful detailed description of a yogi going from a normal state to the samadhi or the highest samprajnata samadhi, in terms of the sequence of the different samapattis and the state of the chitta in each case, right? So it is not just a sort of a glorious description and so on. It is a very careful, rigorous, technical description given by Patanjali and Vyasa as the commentator as to exactly what is happening to the yogi and in the chitta as he is progressing up right to the Nirvichara Vaisharadyam. Okay, and we have seen all of that, so I'm not repeating here. What we are going to see next, okay, and we are sort of in the threshold. What we are going to see next is equally beautifully and in equal detail, we will see how he crosses the threshold from the Samprajnata to Asamprajnata and the Kaivalya. And we are going to see it in very detail, each step, what is happening in the Chitta and in the Yogi, to the Yogi. So while we are at the threshold, we see the state of the Chitta as Ritambara Prajna, as explained here. And this quote says, Agamanena Anumanena. So Agama refers to all the Shastras, all the Vedic knowledge, all the truth as learnt from the Apta Purusha, the one who knows, who had direct realization, direct revelation, as it was transmitted by him and then heard by the listener, by the yogi. Having heard that, the vritti and the jnana in his buddhi, that is agama. Okay, so by that medium, Anumana refers to inference and reasoning, the correct reasoning and correct inference. What is the third? Dhyanabhyasa rasena cha. So Dhyanabhyasa rasa is unique to this particular yogic journey, where through the dhyana abhyasa, the repeated practice and inculcation of samadhi and so on, the reality of various elements, because we have seen it goes from gross to subtle in various ways. So all of that, the essence of which, dhyana abhyasa rasa, that all three together are necessary. Okay, so agamanena, anumanena, dhyanabhyasa rasena cha, tridha in three ways. Right? These are the three ways. So tridha prakalpayan prajnam. So how is the prajna being generated? By all these three happening together, repeatedly getting established. Right? So agama, which is heard and understood, anumana, thinking and reasoning, and dhyyanabhyasa rasa, all three coming together are generating a certain prajna in the buddhi. Okay? Labate yogam uttamam. So the uttamam yogam, so which is that? That is referring to the highest, which is asamprajnata samadhi, which is also the nirbija leading to kaivalyam. So that one he will attain through these three, right? Through these three prajnas getting generated. How will he reach that state? That we'll see in the sort of the next sutras that are coming. So at this sutra, he is in that state where he has reached the Ritambara Prajna, which has come through Agamanena, Anumanena, Dhyanabhyasa, Rasena cha. Okay, so that is where this is to be understood.
So the Adhyatma Prasad is that it's a prajna, it's a wisdom, which is called Ritambara. So Ritam has something to do with the Satyam, which Vyasa clarified. Satyam Bharati iti Rutam Bharati. What is Rutam and Satyam? There are two aspects. Like we have two aspects of reality even in our empirical plane, called relative truth and absolute truth. Now it is 10 o'clock, 10:25. Is it reality? It's reality. What kind of reality? Relative reality. Because it's not 10:30 in another location now. It is only 10:30, which is only in this location. So it is relative to fact that you are in India. It is related to the fact that you are in India, therefore you say Sunday morning 10:25. That is relative reality. If I ask you what is the absolute reality with regards to time, what time are you going to tell me? The fact is not that we are in timeless condition. The reality is that we are in timeless condition. So sometimes back I'd said try to understand what's the difference between true and real. I'll let in a worm what is true and what is real. So ponder over it. You You can speak the truth. You can't speak the real. There can be no eloquence for real. You can only speak the truth. So many aspects are there between real and truth. Now, in our empirical plane, we have only two realities, absolute and relative reality. And in philosophy, we have three aspects of realities. There are three dimensions. I am Prashant Iyengar. Is it real? Is it true? What kind of truth is it? It is a temporary reality. From my birth until my death, I will be identified as Prashant Iyengar. My soul doesn't have the name that it is Prashant. The spiritual entity in me is nameless. So the fact that I am Prashant Iyengar, is Pratibhasika Satya. Pratibhasika Satya. It is a truth by imposition. I am imposing that I am Prashant, I am man, I am of this caste, class, creed, gender, status, family, ethnicity, ancestry, etc. Therefore I say I am Prashant Iyengar. This is imposition on that soul which has no caste, class, creed, gender, status, stature, genetic background and ancestry. So it is imposition. I impose that I am man, I impose that I have this caste, class, creed, gender, and that is given the name Prashant. So it is imposed reality. It is reality by imposition. Pratibhasika Satya. I am man is also pratibhas. I am man is also imposition, because the soul doesn't have any gender. I impose that I am man on me. It's an imposition. However, it is a fact. It is real. It is real. If you go by my biological test, you will say, yes, he is a man, gender. Male gender, he is a man. But the greater reality is that it's a transcendent entity. I am a transcendent entity. So there are various layers of realities. Pratibhasika Satya, Vyavaharika Satya, Paramarthika Satya. Today there is no time, so but next time perhaps we will touch it. So these are three kinds of truths. One is for business of life. So for business of life, it is true that I am Prashant Iyengar, I am a director of the institute, etc. So this is a Vyavaharika Satya. It is reality on the business plane of life. I don't every time exist in this state that I am man, I am Prashant Iyengar, I am director of the institute. To escape from this, I take recourse to sleep at night. I want to forget that I am Prashant Iyengar. I don't want to be in my that factual reality. I want to be away from my fact that I am man, that I am Prashant, I am director. It's a fact. But I want to escape that fact, because fact is not real. That's why we all want to go to sleep, not to be ourselves. That is Vyavaharika Satya. When I am awake, in a wakeful state, I want to have this kind of attachment to my ego. I am man, this is my status, this is my stature, etc., etc. I want to have this attachment. Just as we are all putting on clothes. Why? Well, when we were born, we came without clothes, but we started wearing clothes. So all these aspects are clothes. The moment we wake up in the morning, we want to put on the clothes that I am so and so. And therefore this is my duty, this is my right or duty or privilege and freedom, etc. Liberty, etc. So there is Vyavaharika Satya. Paramarthika Satya, essential truth. So I am Prashant, I am Indian, I am man is also kind of reality. It is a temporary reality. Next life I might be American, I might be African, I might be subhuman, I can be superhuman, I can be celestial, I can be a god, I can be subhuman. There is no chance that I will be once again Prashant Iyengar, no chance in next life, by next life. So there are so many realities. And that's why for philosophical inquiry, this scope, it's called truth scope. And it tells you, classify whether you want business plane of life reality or imposed reality or essential reality. Paramarthika Satya. And naturally here in Ridambara Prajna, the yogi is going to realize the essential realities of everything, which is support, coming as support to his chitta. And that's why he will know the realities. And that's why in Upanishads you get Ritam Vadish. I will speak the truth in the form of Ritam. I will speak the truth in the form of Satyam. It's a great wisdom in the lore to speak about two kinds of truths. One is Ritam, one is Satyam, one is temporary, one is timeless. One is timeless, spaceless. Something is related to time and space. So that's one kind of truth. One which is not is another kind of truth. So therefore there are two grades of truth. One is called Ritam, which is also truth. Satyam, which is also truth. So perhaps next time we will tell you about Ritam and Satyam, which is more long-term truth and which is more short-term truth. You are here is a short-term truth. Soon you will be not here. So there is long-term truth, there is short-term truth, there is relative truth, there is absolute truth. There is delimited truth in time and space, there is undelimited truth in transcendent condition where you are not in the time and space. When you go beyond time and space, another truth. That's the absolute truth. Yogi realizes, or yogi's chitta is in that absolute truth, that is the prasada, that is the grace and bliss. Because we all are seeking truth. Nobody says, I want to be in untruth in the world, I want just know the untruth. I don't want to know any truth. Is there anyone here by exception? We want to know the truth, but we don't want to speak the truth. See the human psyche, how it works. No one in the world, even mad man will say, lunatic person will say, I am in pursuit of the truth. It's a different thing that he is on a wrong track. But he is seeking truth. Whether you are mad or sane, normal or sane, normal or mad, we are all seeking the truth. No one ever says, I don't want to know the truth. But are we qualified to get the truth, know the truth, and assimilate the truth? So we should not really know the truth until we are not capable of assimilating the truth. And that's why the truth is devastating. Satya katu asta, never ever. That's not true. Because we don't qualify, we can't withstand the truth, and therefore we say truth is bitter. We need to qualify. Yogi gets qualified, that's why it is prasada. For you and me, knowing the truth can be devastating our mind. For yogi, it won't. Because he is qualified to receive absolute truth. We don't qualify. That's why we cannot bear with it, we cannot put up with it, we cannot assimilate it, we cannot stand it. We can't stand the truth. He is capable of standing the truth, therefore he confronts the truth. He realizes the truth. He knows the truth. He lives in truth. That's why it is prasada. And it is a bliss to be knowing truth. Unlike the worldly expression, truth is bitter. Is there any bliss in bitter things? That's why it is prasada. We should qualify for it. Yogi qualifies, and therefore it is prasada. It is adhyatma prasada. Okay? Anyway, this truth need to be investigated. Pratibhasika, paramarthika, vyavaharika. Absolute truth, real truth. Ritam, form of satyam. Satyam, form of satyam. Truth as ritam, truth as satyam. Next time I want him to speak about it. What is satya? What is truth as ritam? What is truth as satyam? And in ultimate plane, there are no two categories such as relative and absolute. That's why ritam bhara prajna. For us to understand satyam bhara prajna. Because otherwise we do not know the word ritam, therefore he says satyam bibharti. Because we do not know ritam and satyam, yogi is an absolute reality state, reality condition, reality reception. That's why ritam bharati, ritam bhara prajna, and not satyam bhara prajna. Because satyam is in our world of mortals. Absolute real and relative real. So that's why ritam bhara prajna. For us to understand satyam bhara prajna. So he says satyam bibharti. So next time he should slightly delineate upon ritam vadishyami, satyam vadishyami. What is speaking the ritam, what is speaking the satyam. Okay.
So just before closing, I just want to make sure that, so this thing that Vyasa quoted, right? Agamanena, anumanena, dhyanabhyasa rasena cha, trida prakalpayan prajnam, labhate yogamuttamam. It's sort of useful to understand it here because that captures where we are in our understanding and what comes next. So I'll sort of say what in Yoga Vartika it is explained. So in the Yoga Vartika, as it is explained, he says, Tathacha Shravana Manana Nididhyasanaihi. So these terms are well known, probably most of you have heard it. Shravana means hearing and listening. Manana means contemplating on that and understanding through inference that comes in. Nididhyasana involves inculcating that in oneself and practicing it. So Shravana Manana Nididhyasanaihi Tribihi Hetubihi. So this corresponds to the Agamanena, Anumanena, Dhyanabhyasa, Rasena cha that Vyasa quoted. So through these three, Sabija Yoga Kale, when one is in the Sabija, which is the Samprajñāta Samadhi, Sabija Yoga Kale, Prajñām Prakalpayan, by generating the Prajñā, that particular state of the intellect, Prakarshena Viparyasa Rahityena Utpadayan. So, exalted and completely devoid of any viparyaya. Okay, so completely sort of shining the truth. Generating that prajna, tat prajñātaha, through that prajna, from that prajna, paravairagya dvara. We have seen what is paravairagyam. Now, through the means of the paravairagyam, vaksyamanam, something that is to be explained in on the next sutras, vaksyamanam, uttamam yogam, the greatest yoga which is to be explained, which is that nirbijam. So the nirbija samadhi, the nirbija yogam labhate, the yogi attains. Okay, iti shlokarthaha. So this shloka that Vyasa just quoted, that covers the journey to the samprajñāta from the Sampragnata through Paravairagya to the Asampragnata and the Uttama highest yoga. So that is very concisely being quoted here, and that is where we are standing at the threshold in our understanding. So I just wanted to say that, and we'll stop here. We'll say the shlokas on Guruji.
That is why the metaphysicist says, the things don't exist as they are seen. Things don't exist as they are seen. The things are as they exist. So things are not as they are seen and perceived. The things are as they exist. And we, in our delimited condition of the brain, we just believe in truths as we see, as we hear, but the things might exist in altogether different state. So things are as they not appear as they really exist. This is a metaphysical precept. The things are not as they are seen, cognized, perceived, sensed, but the things are as they exist. And the truth lies in their existence, the form as they exist, not in the form that as they appear. And all our truth is appearance-y truth. We go for appearance-y truth. This appears to be like that, and this is right. This is like this. It actually appears. And that's why we need to take microscopes and telescopes and other gadgets to know as the things exist. So Ridambara Prajna is a truthoscope. Is a truthoscope. It will tell you truth. It will give you truth.
Vaijnanika shikshakatve
Vaijnanika shikshakatve
kalakara asaneshu yaha
kalakara asanechu yaha
yogabhyase cha tattvajñas
yogaabhyase cha tattvajñas
tam vande sundaram gurum
tam vande sundaram gurum
yoga vriksho lokesmin
yoga vriksho lokesmin
vardhito yasya preranaya
vardhito yasya preranayah
yogacharyaya gurave
yogacharyaya gurave
sundaraya namo namaha.
sundaraya namo namaha.
So we'll stop here. I will not take any questions today given the time. Thank you.